more on this, we're now being joined by Edward P. Joseph. He's joining us live from New York. Mr. Joseph is a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and also foreign policy expert. Welcome to the show, Mr. Joseph. Now, more than 15 policemen and several civilians, including an Orthodox priest, have been killed. Talk to us about the nature of this attack, which seems to be targeting religious buildings.
Yes, first of all, good to be with you and your viewers. And yes, this appears to be another terrorist attack of the kind that Russia suffered, the severe one that Russia suffered, as your report mentioned, back in March in Moscow, when over 100, well over 100 people were killed by murderous terrorists associated with the extremist Islamic radical movement known as ISIS, or the affiliate known as ISIS-K, and who slaughtered concert-goers in Moscow in March at that concert hall. And the early indications are, and we see that from the reporting by the Russian authorities, that this appears to have the earmarks of another terrorist affiliate. Potentially it could be ISIS, although that is not known at the moment. And yes, the selection of the targets, both Russian Orthodox Christian and Jewish, in the form of two synagogues that were attacked by these, again, murderous terrorists, it certainly suggests, has the earmarks, that it could well be another example of the type of terrorist attack that we saw from this Islamic radical group back in March. Please.
Right, Mr. Joseph, you do speak of the latest terror attack in Dagestan is similar to that, what Moscow witnessed back a few months back near the concert hall. Now, the incident in Dagestan comes as a deadly missile attack killed 4 people in Crimea, which Russia has blamed on the U.S. How can this change the course of the ongoing war, and what kind of retaliation can we expect from Russia at the moment?
Well, first of all, it's interesting to look at this in connection with the previous story. Let's bear in mind that that terrible terrorist attack by ISIS back in March in Russia, as many as 140 Russians murdered at that concert hall, there were warnings given by the United States. So the United States, even though its relations with Russia are in a very adversarial at the moment, with the U.S. backing Ukraine and Russia having this aggressive war against Ukraine, and pitting the two as the Russia and the United States as adversaries, still the U.S. came forward and warned Russia about this potential terrorist attack. And now we see Russia, so therefore that Moscow knows that the United States is not just this enemy trying to destroy it, but actually sharing vital information that can save Russian lives. And then here we see Russia blaming the United States for this attack. And what's very important here is to note what the Russians themselves have said about the attack. They say in Crimea that there were 4 missiles from Ukraine that entered into Crimean airspace, and that they shot down 3, but the 4th deviated its trajectory after being hit by the Russian missile. And that deviation is then what caused these fragments to hit and spill over the beach, which apparently killed civilians. So it's very important to note that it could well have been the impact from a Russian anti-missile attack that caused, in fact, the shrapnel to kill the civilians on the beach. And that is something that internally, at least, Russia will know and factor in terms of how it processes this and the true blame that it gives to the United States. Please.
But Mr. Joseph, coming back to the attack in Dagestan, the officials in Moscow have said that the attackers are adherents of an international terror organization, and like you also mentioned, that the attack in Dagestan could be similar to that what Moscow witnessed 145 days earlier. Let's also talk about how last year in October, a mob had stormed an airport in Dagestan looking for Jewish passengers. There have perhaps been several anti-Semitic incidents across that belt. What do you feel is the current incident highlights about the region and the significance of the region where both these attacks took place in Dagestan?
Well, of course, that was simply an outrage there to attack civilians on an airliner simply because they're Jewish. What is this? They're not combatants. They're people traveling on an airplane. And back in October to have just gone in a mob like that, this is a disgrace. And the question is, of course, what the authorities in Dagestan did about that, how the police reacted, and did they know, did they have any advance warning, and did they take steps to prevent that attack in October? But it's, again, it's an indication of the type of attitudes there in Dagestan. And here we should think a little more strategically about the strategies of a group like ISIS. And again, we don't know yet for sure if ISIS is responsible for this attack, but it could well be. And we should consider the motives. And what are the motives? The motives are competition. They're basically to continue to raise the profile of ISIS as opposed to other groups that are active in the Middle East, and basically to slaughter innocent people here. In this case, this most recent case, slitting the throat of an Orthodox priest, attacking a synagogue. These are the type of terrorist attacks, and again, without any purpose except to cause bloodshed and raise their own profile. Please.
Right, Mr. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing insights with us on the latest attack in Russia's Dagestan area.
You're welcome.